So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to another episode
Hi.
of Global Experts Podcast by 50 Plus Assist in collaboration with Elderly Care India. I'm Dr. Mrigna Nagaraj, founder of 50 Plus Assist, an organization dedicated to home care, dementia care, companionship for older adults. And with me is my lovely co host, Pankaj. So, Pankaj, baton on to you.
Thank you, Dr. Mrigna. And I think it's genuinely good morning, good evening across the globe because, as usual, today I think we are at three time zones, which we were just talking about. And the special guest today is Nancy Rhodes, all the way from UA. So Nancy has been a very, very great supporter for Elderly Care India and
Thank
comes
you.
with a lot of experience across the long-term care and the aging sector. She has authored a book called Caregiver Success. And besides that, we are looking forward for the experience from her in terms of the caregiving part and the YouTube channel which she shares. The link will be there in the podcast at the later end, as well as on the YouTube content. So thank you, Nancy, for coming over and taking out time. And we look forward for the next 30 hours, 30 minutes of your inputs.
Thank you. Hey, well, thanks for having me on your show and sharing this with everyone. This is exciting because I'm it's 10:30 here, and I know somebody just had to get up in the morning, so I'm like, this is really cool. I've never done this with people in the middle of the night as far as doing podcasts, but so I know you had some questions for me, and they were very, very deep questions, and they really made me think and about a lot of things that made me get to where I am now. I'll just give you a little bit about myself. I'm a nurse practitioner. I have been retired for about 5 years because I met somebody on a match.com and I landed up moving to another state and had to sell a company that I owned. And it was like I talked about, there's avenues in our lives that we take depending on where we're supposed to be. And I landed up finding a company that actually bought my patients' load, all my staff, and my whole community. So I was able to kind of like, leave and then write this book that I wrote about all my experiences of taking care of the older people for 45 years of my career. And one of your questions was like, what moment in your life or your career made you realize that you wanted to, talk about the caregiver? And I think about us, we're all caregivers, aren't we? I mean, we're supposed to be taking care of us, ourselves, this body, but then we have a pet, or then we have a child, or then we have a mother, or a sister, or a friend, or a stranger. We are taking care of everyone. We are taking care of people all over the world, I feel. I think that's what I feel with my YouTube channel. I just did one on how to make homemade soap on eczema because my granddaughter has eczema and she can't have regular soap. And you can make things. So there's a lot of things that we can do to take care of ourselves as far as caregivers. And so to answer your question, that is it. Um, Tell me where you'd like to go with the whole discussion. I'll just keep talking. I'm Italian. I'll just talk all day. All night.
Me too. Me too. Love talking. And Nancy, honestly, has been really interesting to read about your journey. So, but a lot of readers here and a lot of listeners here who are right now listening to our podcast are new. And for them, I would love to know from yourself. So, Nancy, your book, Caregiver Success, is a very personal and deeply connected to your personal experiences, as far as I have understood it. So, let me start the question with that many people might be just curious about. What moment of your life or career made you realize that caregiver themselves needed care, guidance, and a voice?
Oh, wow. Well, like I mentioned, caregivers are all of us. And we need to be advocates. We need to be advocates for ourselves and for others. Now that I am an older person in on the Medicare chain, I'm like, I am now one of them. I'm the person that I took care of. And I think about, like, I have a little book. When did I get my last vaccine? When did I have a colonoscopy? My shingle shot. Everything that I've done or my problems, I make it easier for the person who's taking care of me by making sure I have my story straight. And I think we need to, if we can't do it, we have to be able to say, I need to be an advocate for you because you need it. So, as far as a caregiver goes, I think, being a home visit person, I found that the caregivers they were everywhere, for their moms and their dads, their sisters, their elderly, disabled, and they needed a lot of support. Because we are all caregivers, I feel that we're definitely need to be a voice. There's too many of us that are aging in place. And even if you're young and disabled, you need to have a voice. You need to speak up for yourself. You need to ask questions. You are your own caregiver. Maybe it's just the way I look at life and who I am, but I think everybody deserves that. They need to ask questions. They need to get respect. They need to have their questions answered. Um, does that help with that question for you?
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely, Nancy. It's when you said that everyone is a caregiver, I think somewhere a couple of years back I read either you are a caregiver, you will become a caregiver, or someone has
Or
been a
you-
caregiver for you. The amazing reality, which I think most of us lose out on, because when you're starting from the childhood, our parents are taking care of us, then we are taking care of the children, and then we are taking care of the parents. So I think all the three stages of the aging process, respective of from 0 to 100 or infinity, is very much there. So, Nancy,
Mhm.
my question to you would be, since you have been a professional aged care person or the long-term care person, and you've been entering or going to the houses to a certain extent of people who
Yeah.
require care, there's a lot of exchange of emotions and exchange of caregiving aspects which happens at the home care level. So, what do you think
Oh,
are the
absolutely.
most vulnerable points which a person should probably be looking at, especially in the US, because India dynamics are very different. And how did that filter down to your book as such?
Oh, wow. Well, when I was a 24-year-old girl out of college and started my second job, I went in a hospital for a year and I'm like, this is not going to be for me. I want to be in the community. And, I wasn't going to be in the OR. I wasn't going to be in baby and delivery. And I was not going to be, I needed to be, I needed to be in the community. I kind of knew that. And people could say, no, you can't come in. You can knock on the door, but they don't let you in. But for them to let me in, and some people said, please take off your shoes, or some people, I wish I had more shoes on because it was, squalor, or the environment was not what I expected. But I there was never a judgment. I was accepted in. I would sit on a chair with newspapers on them. I wouldn't, there was like nothing I would do to make it different. And I would get things out of people that people never thought you could get. When you sit down in their turf and you just give them a moment of your time and you don't move and you don't have a pencil or paper, all of a sudden they'll tell you everything. You may need to stay there longer than you hoped, but at least you know that you gain their trust, that they want you to be there. And then they'll call the son down from the room upstairs and say, I want you to meet Nancy. She's going to help me with my leg wound. She wants to teach you how to do this. It was never, it was easy. It was easy for me. I found it very easy. I remember jumping through the snow, foot of snow, trying to get into someone's house. I had to see the mom, and the snowplow never came. And I just had my bag and I just had to get in there. And they're like laughing from the garage door, and I'm just jumping like a bunny trying to get over the big snow piles, to go in. Some people would say, I'm not going. I'm going to go home. You get plowed. Or I'm coming in to help you. We're going to figure this out. And they knew that that was what I would do. So making house calls is so intimate. It really is. You know, people have religion. You know if they're sloppy. You know if they're poor. You know a lot about them just by walking in their door, I found. And that made me almost know where to go. You know, almost gave me a roadmap, an emotional roadmap, I think is what I would call it. And I love the interactions, the people talking to each other. I could tell if the mother was treated well or not. And it was never like, wow, this is a mean daughter. It was like, what's up with the daughter that's making her act this way? And then the daughter would be crying in the kitchen saying, I can't do this. And that's why she was mean to mom. So you have to kind of peel their onion. I call it peeling the onion. And as you peel people down, you can get to the bottom of almost anything. So you can imagine what a book would be like. You start taking these pieces of things in your head. And I had a big box in the basement, and I would take another picture of something and like, this has got to go in the book. And I got all these permission notes from people. Is it okay if I put your face in your slippers and things in the book? Like, yeah, sure, Nancy. So I had all these permission slips. It was kind of like simple, but um that's what happened. So I always kept humor, and I always gave my patients hope. When I left, we always left in a good way, with hope and humor. That was sort of like a healing I felt, no matter what was ahead for them.
I agree, Nancy, and honestly, working in the same home care sector, I've also realized a very similar thing. So whenever I visit somebody's house, I've been to people who have been where there is no space to like step onto the ground because the house has been terribly hoarded, and so
Yeah.
terribly hoarded that bringing the senior back from hospital to the house is highly unsafe. I've been
Mm.
to certain situations like that also, and you're very correct that it's not the person who is acting badly. It's probably just a situation. They're overwhelmed. There may be financial reasons to it. There may be emotional, mental health reasons. So many things, like you said, like an onion. You peel little by little, and you figure out, oh, this is what is going wrong. This is what is happening. This is probably the reason they're feeling overwhelmed, or this is where they probably need a support system, somebody to help them. And it's very well with the kind of work we do, in the at-home care sector, which is very, I would say, different from any other kind of care that exists. So, talking more about it, in caregiving, sometimes a single story, can change how we see the aging and the whole process with a lot of compassion, and has happened to me also on a very personal level. So in your career as a nursing practitioner, and then working in at home care, has there been particular patients or family whose story profoundly changed the way you think about caregiving?
A family, or you're talking about, oh yeah, a family or a patient. I have a wonderful, cool story of a woman. Her name was Jinx, and which is a
Okay.
very interesting name.
Very
And she
true.
went to a Catholic school, and the nun said, "Oh, you can't be called Jinx. We're going to call you Anne." She says, "But my name is Jinx." And she was a really cool woman, and her husband had Alzheimer's. He was an alcoholic. He worked for a very high stress malpractice company for car accidents. He traveled all over the world for this car company. I won't say who it was, what it was, and he would check why did the car have an accident, and he had to go to court. Very high powered, heavy job, and he would drink all the time. And I think part of it, I think the reason why he partly got dementia was just from so much alcohol, it seemed. And he was abusive and he was tough on her. But Jinx was really a cool woman. She had a support group of women all through Alzheimer's support group, which is a association in Rockland County where I saw my patients. And all these women had husbands with Alzheimer's, and they became like a sisterhood. and they would meet once a week for lunch, get somebody to watch their husbands so they can hang out. One by one, they died, and they stayed together as sisters. This is now 10 years later. And Jinx actually, all her friends she sent to me. So I became the clinician for all the husbands at home all over the county, taking care of the whole gang of them, which was really fun. And at the end of the book, she's throughout the book, her stories. I remember going to her house one day after Oxel was her husband's name, Jinx and Oxel. I mean, he was a German man. And he had died. And she says, my 24-hour-a-day job is now over. Just like that. I was the 24-hour-a-day job for 10 years. And she was looking through all her old memoirs, and she had a basket of letters, and she was going through all the love letters from when she was 25 and met Oxel. So she was going through all her memories as she's cleaning out her house to move to another state near her children. And she still finds me on Facebook all the time. She knows where I am, what I'm doing. We became best pals because we were living our lives together. I was part of her life. She was part of mine. I think that's what happens in the home too. When you're in the hospital and you're working in an OR or something, you have no idea what this person's been through at all. They're in and they're out. And ambulatory cares, urgent cares, they're quick. Home care goes on for years and years. You develop these relationships. And she's all over the book because she had a story from the beginning to the end and how she's doing now. Well, she ran into her old boyfriend from high school that worked with her husband when they were married, that she remembered from then, and his wife had died, and now they're traveling the world together. So she's living her second life as a romance in her mid-70s with this other man. Isn't that an amazing story?
Yes, it is. And it's quite inspiring, to be honest, because especially talking from the Indian context, once in India, around 50s or 60s, a woman loses their husband, they are expected to devote their life into religion, into family, into various things, and they are not expected to live their own life.
Yeah.
Which in fact I find very downgrading for women, and in a way. And I feel women, no matter what age they are, they're capable of so much more in their life, and they deserve that happiness. They deserve that shot onto love, traveling, adventure. I don't know what they want to do, but I think that for me, it's very inspiring to hear about the story, to be very, very honest.
That's so sweet, actually.
Isn't it sweet? It really is sweet. That's why when you said that, she immediately came to mind, because she's really living her life. She got dealt this hand. It was a tough marriage. She stuck it out. She loved him till the end. And then she found her other love from years ago in the same situation, and they're just moving on. It's just something out of a movie. I don't know, but real life can be just as fun as a movie, I think.
I so completely relate to this particular story because we all have a story, to be honest. Everyone has a story. Some of them have got interesting stories. Some of them got a little more interesting story. All you have to do is just put in the background music and you'll have tears in your eyes, I'm sure. So that's really, 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 really amazing. Because reality of life is behind the curtains, and I think all of us put up a face or a mask when we are on the professional front or outside the house. So, Nancy, why I'm asking you this question is because you actually see people whenever you go to the person's house. You see those wrinkles on the sheets, which is the true actual life. let me put it that way. And the vulnerability of both the both the people, whether it's a caregiver as well as the person being cared, and the stress of the caregivers in the air, which they want to express but they're not able to express, and over a period of time, it's like you can't leave them, you can't live with them. How does that happen? Because it's caregiving is a lot of stressful, I would say, equations, which is fun to a certain extent, but beyond that, it can become very, very demanding and challenging. So, in your book, when you wrote about this with all your experiences, uh, how many people really you really come across who are stressed out because of caregiving?
Oh, that were stressed out being a caregiver? Everybody. I had a private company. I wasn't working for another doctor. I was in New York, where I didn't need a collaborating doctor after 3 years of clinical being in the home. So I was able to, I'd get a call at 9 at night. I'd know what was going on then. And sometimes I would go out if I had to. I had other nurse practitioners who made house calls with me. You know, there was usually big problems, something big. I felt really bad for some of them. Some of them, it got to the point where mom just shouldn't come home, or your sister, it's okay. You bring flowers, you could hang out with her, but I think we need to, let's get her in a system where we can help her more. It was getting the person to that point. One thing that I did with the home care group I had is I found great people to work with me. I had an X-ray company that came to the house. You fell off the bed and we think you broke your shoulder. Okay, let's make sure. You have pneumonia, we could treat that at home. If you need a social worker and you're crying, I would love to stay with you, but I think you need, some counseling. Call her in. We had therapy, PT, OT, speech, massage therapy. I had a podiatrist who came, and all these people would just be the repertoire of care. So at least I was able to solve problems by using my pool of people, which made it easier for me to go to the next troubled situation that it was. Also, a lot of doctors just handed me patients. They would just say, Mary can't come to the office, and I can't legally take care of her this way. And I'm like, well, you'll be my liaison because you know her forever. And let's take care of her together, and I'll let you know this is what's going on. What do you think now? And they love that. So, I think caregivers go through a lot. And sometimes people are not meant to be caregivers. And I have had those discussions. Like the first page of my book talks about compassion. Do you have it? And well, actually, the first page is a prayer for the caregiver. It's on the back of my little marker, the book marker. A prayer for the caregiver, dear Lord, is really long, but just to give you a gist, I pray that you will give me strength and patience to be a good caregiver and take care of my loved one, that you will give me emotional health and show me peace and resilience in order to deal with the stress of today. I pray for physical well-being. I ask for restful sleep and good health to take care of my responsibilities. And oh Lord, give me wisdom to do the right thing. It's like this little card is like you can go to every page in the book. It could almost be your start of the day prayer, you know? I think once the caregiver gives up hope and just throws their hands up, I have to step in and help them move to the next level. And I'm sure you've run into that as well. Have you? I mean, sure. So compassion's important. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be a doctor or a nurse and going to make money. And, I'm going to just punch in and punch out. And then you find out that they don't have compassion, or empathy. I've been to missions and they say the students are saying, well, I'm going to make money and I'm going to do 12-hour shifts and I'm going to travel. And they're like, but, what about, I could tell that there was no compassion. and they didn't know. I think we need to train doctors and clinical people before they start. You're not accepted in this program. I don't care how much money you have to go to Duke or wherever you're going, and that everybody's paying your way. But if you could be the smartest kid in your class, but if you don't have that gift of compassion, you're not going to ever heal your patients. You're never going to, I don't know. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Because that was one of the first things I got to re-edit my book, and I said I have to put a page in about compassion because maybe the caregiver who buys it will say, um, "Oh my gosh, I'm not this person. I'm going to find somebody who does." And here's Nancy's book. You can tell her how to take care of her constipation. You know?
No, I totally agree with you, Nancy, and it's a fact. Even when we do hiring for people, looking for individuals who can work at home. So my first criteria is not the look at the best college they passed out from, or the degrees in psychologies and the more diplomas they have. For me, of course, degrees and diplomas, it plays a very important part nonetheless, because you need people who have the background to be able to help. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, for us, the most important is the soft skill that they have. So whether they have empathy, whether they have sympathy, whether they are able to relate to people, whether they are able to, be people of goodwill. Because at times you don't need anything. You just need somebody who's a very good listener.
Yeah.
And I think that also solves a lot of issues at times. You just need somebody who can listen to you, even for not only for the individual who is having with, some kind of a issue, or individuals that we're caring for. Sometimes it's even for the family who is a primary caregiver, who is probably stressed, doesn't has any respite, who needs just a little time or out, maybe out of everything. And you just
Yeah.
listen to them, I think, for a little while. And I think that puts a lot of fresh perspective and strength and enthusiasm into them to be able to continue, because it's like I say, caregiving is, we Indians, we love cricket. So it's not a T20 match. It's not that you finish up. Caregiving is a test series. So it's a long way to go, and you need to be patient, and you need to continue with all the force and all the strength. And I think you're very correct. Compassion plays a very, very important role in that case. If people aren't compassionate for what they're doing, I think it's better that they are not caregivers, because ultimately they'll put themselves into situation that they'll be, having stress and guilt about till the end of their lives, that I've seen in a lot of cases. So I think it's a very important topic you spoke about, that talking to people, whether they actually can be caregivers. We never talk about it. We think it just comes to you, and if it comes to you, you need to take it. You know, if it
And
has
the
been as a, yeah, please.
Yeah, but care, the compassion, that means your staff, your coworker that had to go home to a sick child, could you pick it up for her? And then how do you take care of yourself later, to make sure that, that I keep hearing the oxygen mask. We all know that thing, but it's so
Correct.
true. If you just don't take time for you, you're not going to be able to keep going. I would have a massage once a
Yeah.
month, and I was always late getting to the massage. And they're like, "Oh, Nancy, what was how was your day?" I'm like, "Oh, just give me my massage. I need it." But I always try to make sure I had something to look forward to for me because I was a single mom raising my kids, mowing the lawn, and worrying about these patients. So you have to take care of yourself, and you have to know when to say, "I quit," which I never
No, it's
did. But
very, it's very interesting, Nancy. So after everything you have witnessed, the homes you have entered, the families you have supported, the stories that you have carried with you, there must be
mm,
some deeper reflections about life and aging, I'm sure, that must be there in your book. So, as we want to talk about more philosophical part of it, what is a message about life, aging, love that you hope people who are listening to us today in this podcast carry with them, and and should carry with them once they finish with your book?
wow. After signing like 500 death certificates over 10 years, and you're writing like why they passed away and you were there, and sending a card to the daughter saying Mary taught me like something really cool, a great joke I can use on somebody else. Or I would always write these cards. I think it started, and I was like in my 40s, I started just to realize that, we're only given one life. And my life was, I was given this gift of helping others, but I was able to see early that you can have a purpose that could be, you don't know where you're going to go next. I mean, look what happened to me. I mean, even when I started my company, I was working in oncology and I was single. And I was working in primary care, and I got a letter in the mail, and it was from one of my patients, and it said, Nancy, don't let the bastards get you down. And there was a check for $10,000 in the envelope. And he wanted me to start this company to take care of the frail older people at home. And I was single and I didn't have that kind of money. And then 2 days later, I got a phone call, and it was from the county of Rockland that a doctor lost his license in Medicare for fraud. And there were 50 patients that needed a house call visit, and there were no records because he didn't keep records. And I inherited all these Medicare patients. And things like that, and just praying over the Tappan Zee Bridge and saying, I need to get rid of this job. Can you please just help me stop going over this Tappan Zee Bridge to this job an hour away from home? And the phone rang on the bridge. And it was a small company that told me, if you take care of our disabled children 4 hours in the morning, doing exams on them, you can go out all afternoon and we'll give you health insurance for your family and take care of these 50 people. And I was like, holy cow, that happened in like 4 months. It was like, I'm talking about, life adventures and listening and waiting for ask for what you need and you'll get what you need, or what is supposed to be happening for you. So it was wonderful. And that's why the book had to happen. And there's a lot of spirituality throughout the book. I got to re-edit it. I'm like, there needs to be God in my book because there's not enough hope. People counted on me, but I wasn't the answer. I was just the facilitator. I was just the helper. Um, and I got so many blessings throughout my life since this because of all of that, that I'm still doing all sorts of trouble out there. Believe me, as I retired, I'm doing that's for another video or whatever. But I mean, during COVID, I made signs for my yard. Everybody would drive past my house to get to the back streets, and there would be a sign. And because you couldn't talk to anybody, and they would say things like, hope anchors the soul, just do the next right thing, be a blessing. And one month I didn't put signs out, and some of the neighbors I never met said, "Where's your signs?" And I just said, it was windy and they were blowing down. He says, I need your signs. So I started making more signs. Yeah, you just don't know who you're helping without getting paid for it.
Correct.
Anyway, I'm
It's
diverging here,
that's
but
so relatable, Nancy, because your experiences of interacting with so many people at their houses, uh, it is definitely very much relatable because when we speak about the stress, just why I'm stressing it on the caregiving part, because eventually, end of the day, uh, it becomes no more fun. It is a lot of tension which brings into the body, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, draining you out.
yeah.
So when it becomes a little bit of extra overwhelming for a person to handle it, then what happens? What is the break-even point of a caregiver where he says compassion and everything? Forget compassion. I need compassion now myself. And how does that relate to the book perspective? Because eventually, caregiving is a journey where you'll go up. There'll be ups and downs. I agree. but there is a point where the thread breaks, and the only way to join it is with a knot. And once a knot comes into the thread, there is always going to be a knot. So this is my last question for people, especially in India, the caregiving part, because we are a very dynamic and a very cohesive family structure, even now also, though it is moving. So a lot of people like me, one fine day or probably after a couple of months, they will just come to a point where you feel you're back to the wall and say, okay, boss, either take me or leave me.
So you're talking about your Indian families and how they tell you, I don't
What I'm
understand
saying
you.
is that compassion
Yeah,
of being a caregiver or looking into people's houses, the number of cases you have gone through, how
yeah.
does that compassion, empathy actually filter down, and to what extent that compassion and empathy happens? Because when the caregiver stress happens, all this will probably uh, go, because you yourself require compassion that time.
Wow. I don't know about India and other countries, but I know a lot of nurses don't stay married. They all are divorced. And I started to see that more and more as I got into my own situation in my 40s. I think I think because you're not getting enough fulfillment at home because you're giving all you have when you're gone all day. It's almost like a brain surgeon, or a high lawyer or something that where you give your all your time, energy, and emotion. And when you get home, you either don't get it back or you don't have it to give. And a lot of nurses that are really wonderful, beautiful people are not married anymore. Their families don't stay together. And I think maybe, and I look at myself and I ask myself that question. I don't know. It just wasn't working out. I was not able to get what I needed to fill up my cup to go take care of people. It was interesting. Yeah. So I don't know, but you do have to find your way of filling that cup as a caregiver. Either you need to keep your friends and you need to keep your identity. I mean, I had one woman who had her living room turned into her mother's bedroom. And, and then and she got very overweight, the caregiver. The mother died and she had lost her job and all her friends were at the lab that she worked at. And she got rid of all the stuff and she painted the room a new color and she put a new rug down and I actually stayed in touch with her. We got her on a diet, and I'm like, all right, you can do this, Karen. And we stayed in touch for years. And she got her job back at the lab 5 years later. And like life goes on, But you have to keep your identity. And she did have her friends, and she was never married. So there wasn't a husband or a family or children. So you have to have your own before that person moves in or you move in there, you better have like your network of something. One person at least that you can count on that can take a beating because you're going to be calling them at night upset again. I don't know about you guys, but I have friends, but my friends all ask me for help all the time. I mean, you say, who's helping me? But you know what? Maybe they don't think I need any help. So it's okay. It's all right. Um, but you do have to take care of yourself as a caregiver, or you're just going to lose it. You're not going to be able to do it. Um, and at the end of caregiving, you're still standing here. You're here. You could be, we have somebody who put a tiny home in her backyard for her mom and dad, and they live in this little house, and I see them going out at night in the snow with a package of hot dinner to bring it to their door. At least they move closer so they know they're right there. Mom has Alzheimer's. I know I'm going to be involved down there. I know I'm going to be over there a lot helping Pam without even working. I'll give her a copy of my book. and say, how's she doing with constipation? Because, we just gotta, they're everywhere. They're baby boomers in America. There's 10,000 of us a day turning 65 and till 2030. That's a day. That's a lot of us. The statistics, I don't know what yours are like, but I know aging all over the world we're like more than a third of the world, right? What is the
That's
numbers?
that is true, and in fact, it's a very well said thing. Uh, Here in Brazil, for example, by 2030, 30% of their population would be above 60 years of age. And in fact, though the data is, people have been comparing and talking about it, but
Mm,
also this country has the largest case of Alzheimer's and dementia. But till now, in the cities and in the medical system, I have not myself been seeing the home care setup, blooming so much as required.
mm.
So that's a very interesting perspective, and you're very right. One needs to have this kind of a support system, a kind of a community, friends to back you up in this time.
Mhm.
And I think that plays a very, very vital role. Reminds me of like you said, the oxygen mask. So I tell this to all my seniors who are caring for their spouses or, who are a primary caregiver themselves. And the second thing that I tell them always is that remember, it's not only them who are aging, you are aging too. So
Yes.
you equally need that kind of a support, you equally need that kind of help, you equally need or and deserve all kind of medical support that is being your body is asking for or your health requires.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting, perspective, Nancy, when we hear and uh, I would really like to thank you, so much for sharing your wisdom, your stories of compassion with us today. And your work really
Thank
reminds
you.
us that caregiving is not just like a responsibility. It's an act of
Yeah.
love, humanity, and most important, dignity for one's own self and for the other individual that you're trying to work for. So I think it has been an absolute pleasure to hear all these stories and listening about your book. I think has been very exciting. What do you say, Pankaj?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And
I'm going to show
with
you the
the
book before.
experience filtered into a book by Nancy, we are really
Yeah.
looking forward for the experiences of people, which she has beautifully put it on the book. So I really appreciate Nancy, you're coming over to the podcast. So
Thank you.
as a last thing, hi, can we see the book and can we hear out the
Yeah,
way to get the book?
just to clarify,
Caregiver success, correct.
yeah, it's actually been revised, so it's the tips and tools book, not just the original Caregiver Success book. This is the one I want people to get. Amazon still has the old book up there, and I don't. If you go to my website, nancythemp.com, it's cheaper than Amazon. Amazon is too expensive. And if you wanted 50 books at a time, they could come public, come just by printed, and they won't have to be, there won't be any overhead or anything. And the ebook is $3. You can have it on your phone, which means, your clients could be looking things up without going to Dr. Google, which a lot of people still do Dr. Google, you know?
Yes.
Very
So
true.
I
India,
thank
in
you.
India, we have the WhatsApp University and the Dr. Google, and
Yeah.
very, very dangerous practices people are into these days.
Yeah. You may want to check out my YouTube channel too, because now that and I know we're running out of time, but since there's no medical, I'm not doing much on medical. I mean, I do videos about myself, like going through a calcium score test and why I won't go on a statin, and I'm showing my results. And then I had a cystoscopy and I showed them why I had it. And then I went sleigh riding with my granddaughter. So I'm like, you're having fun and you're taking care of yourself and you're taking care of people. So you have to, like, whatever you're doing in the journey of your life, that's why I'm doing my YouTube now. I'm not pointing about medical care. I'm taking care of people more spiritually and peacefully through what I see and what I experience. So check out my YouTube if you want.
No, no,
Uh,
definitely, Nancy, the kind of inputs which you gave today. I think a lot of people in the hinterlands of India would appreciate that, especially when we converted it into Hindi and other languages of the country. So both the educated people, the people who are taking care of parents, or parents taking care of certain aspects,
Yeah.
will benefit a lot from your book and the guidance.
I
Once
have
again,
followers from India on my channel. I know
oh
I do.
wow, oh wow, 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 oh wow, definitely. I think today you got two more, Dr.
Oh,
Mrigna and
yay.
me. Though I'm already subscribed to
You're,
your
yeah,
channel,
you're
but
probably laughing at
yes.
my videos. Some of them are very funny, and then I get real serious. But you have to have humor, or you
I
just age
100% agree. I
well.
100% agree. So,
Thank you.
coming to the overall discussion, it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and some other aspects we will continue taking your inputs and guidance from. So, once again, thank you, Nancy, for coming on the show. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, God bless.
Thank you for getting up early. Thank you for staying up late, for joining me. Thank you.
So
God
thank you,
bless and
everyone.
peace.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode. And if you found this conversation meaningful, please share it with caregivers, families, and professionals who feel supported by such conversations. And because when we support caregivers, we support the entire ecosystem of care. So until next time, stay compassionate, stay connected. We'll be in touch. Take care. Bye from our side. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Take care.
Dr. Mrigna, and thank you,
Thank you.
Nancy.